Well, Danny, it is so great to see you again. And right up front, when last we spoke, you'd endured this mysterious medical illness. For you, it was like you'd had a stroke. Suddenly you were speaking gobbledygook and you'd lost your balance and everything just seemed to be going completely weird.
It's funny because when I said this to people, I thought I was kind of pumping it up. But the fact is true. I actually had brain surgery since the last time we talked.
Wow.
And I have these gruesome pictures of me with stitches in my head. I don't know how much of this you can see. Can you see this gigantic lump right there?
Yes.
That is a tube in my head that goes all the way down behind my ear, all the way down to my stomach, and then across to my other kidney. It was a big deal. And this is my house in Palm Springs, my wife. And there is a picture of me in this house in a wheelchair. And I can't remember any of it. Even looking at the photograph, I don't remember any time being in this house before we bought it and moved here. So, yeah, it was very confusing.
So, Danny, what was the verdict? How did they eventually get to the bottom of what it was that obviously led you to that rather dramatic surgery?
Hydrocephalus, which is such a weird thing because it not only mimics a stroke, which it does, it also mimics dementia. So, like, I didn't know what he was to believe. And then I met Dr. Williams in Seattle. And he's like the king of all this stuff. And he said, no, man, you have hydrocephalus. You have water on your brain. We have to put in a leak and drain it down your body. I was like, wow, that seems drastic. But literally the next day I was up and walking.
Now, you referenced the fact that you and Amy are now living in Palm Springs. Happy as clams, I'm guessing.
Happy as clams. So they don't have that many clams in the desert, but I get your point.
No, but how have you adjusted from Seattle to the scorching nature of Palm Springs?
Well, we thought at first, because we do have a little place still in Seattle, that we'd go away in the summer and then come back. But we only went for like 2 weeks this year. The heat of the 120s and 118s, it's completely doable. First of all, you go from my air-conditioned home into my air-conditioned car, then to an air-conditioned business. I mean, it's not that difficult. It's difficult, but it's not that difficult.
You are such a ball of energy. You're one of the few people I would ever think would actually find great peace and serenity in retirement.
Well, I did not say once that I'd found serenity. My God, man. But, I was really sick and I had to go back on the radio where you're right with the comedy. I'd say things that made no sense. So my wife just pulled the plug. She said, that's it. You're retiring. And, I've learned a lot of lessons in my lifetime. And one is listen to your wife. They're almost always right.
Let's whirl back to the beginning because, gee, you've had the most extraordinary life. First job in showbiz, this was a TV commercial.
For a product I don't know if it exists anymore, Roman meal bread. So I'm 4 years old, and the joke is, because I'm a skinny little redhead, and next to me is a big fat redhead, and we're my brothers, and the joke is, I make a crazy big sandwich, and he makes a small one. But I didn't take a bite. I didn't know you could say no. So I got a trash can and would just get sick on the side and then do the commercial. And that's my first gig professionally that I was paid money.
Well, it's interesting, too, because I think showbiz is kind of in your DNA, in as much as your dad, Joseph, was a writer on really great TV shows of the day, like The Andy Griffith Show and The Ghost and Mrs Muir. And, of course, you had a really nice role, a good meaty role in The Ghost and Mrs Muir. Do you have memories of doing that?
It was the first time I was really surrounded by actors, by real actors. I think it was Greg Mulhare, I believe, maybe he played the Ghost, and Mrs. Muir was played by, I forget who it was. She's a real serious actor.
Hope Lang, gorgeous Hope Lang.
No, Hope Lang. And I knew I was in, and I was going to say that a lot of people asked me if my mother pushed me into showbiz. It was just the opposite. I was a cute little redhead with a raspy voice, and people were just dying to hire me. Ooh, times have changed.
So then, as a kid, you had this role, and I remember it vividly in Bewitched that included a chimpanzee.
I will tell you this. If you ever get to have a prop bet on this, I'm the only person I know that have been bitten by two different chimpanzees over like a 7-year spread. When my dad worked in the Philadelphia Zoo, which how's how he got started, I guess, he was giving us a backstage tour, and I was petting the chimpanzee, and it pulled my hand in and just bit it like crazy. And then years later, I'm on the Bewitched episode where we have a monkey, and I'm playing with the monkey on literally the monkey bars. And just as the trainer says, don't play with my monkey, the thing bites me in the head. Maybe that's why I got this lump, was getting bit by, I never thought about this. Honey, write this down. I got a hydrocephalus and I was bit by a monkey. Just not going to give myself a diagnosis. But yeah, I work with a lot of monkeys.
Elizabeth Montgomery, Danny, I mean, so beautiful. Even a kid could not help but have a raging crush on her. How did you find her?
Not only beautiful, but she is a real pro. She knew what she wanted. And because I was a kid, the cool part was she knew what she wanted me to do. And I'd done 2 episodes of Bewitched. And so what's that, 60 years ago or something like that? I remember my dialogue. This Tabitha's birthday party, and Elizabeth Montgomery looks at me and says, Danny, or I think it might have been Randy, but whatever, said, you can't punch Tabitha in the stomach. And I said, well, then where can I punch her? That's the kind of stuff that screams Emmy nomination to me.
Where was that Emmy nomination, Danny?
Nah, I don't care about an Emmy anymore, but I would like a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That would be cool.
But where you are now, the Palm Springs Walk of Fame aren't bad either.
Not bad at all. And I think you have to do less movies to get on that.
You did a movie with Elvis, The Trouble with Girls, and I can't get over the fact that he took you into his dressing room and showed you his gold taps.
I mean, I'm just, I guess, 7 years old, maybe 8 years old. And I had some interaction with him, but not much. But I remember at some point, I was looking into his dressing room because I saw something that seemed strange to me. And he said, you want to come in here? And I came in. My mom said I could go, which is cool. And all his faucets and drawers were all women's legs. 14-karat gold ladies' legs. And if your drawer open, you had to pull on these ladies' legs. That will live with me forever because I'm looking at Elvis Presley and golden ladies' legs. How do you beat that?
I don't think you can, and in fact, it's almost epitaph-worthy, isn't it? You know.
Oh, I'll keep that in mind.
I think Vincent Price was in that movie as well. Do you remember the great King of Horror, Vincent Price?
I didn't actually work with him. I knew him reasonably well, but not back then I didn't. As an adult, I did. But that voice, man, my wife, who is considerably younger than I, she knows him from the Thriller videos and The Night Up the Go, whatever he said. That's how another generation knows that guy. That guy was great.
That, of course, was from the Michael Jackson Thriller. And you went to school with not only Michael Jackson, but LaToya Jackson, and I think Janet Jackson. And I've always had this burning question, Danny. Were Michael and LaToya truly different people?
That came up a lot, and yes, they are. And for the honest, she had a lot more work done than he did. He jumped on board the plastic surgery train just a little too many stops down the road, if you get my meaning.
We got Randy Jackson, yeah. And look at this. I think that's the clear winner, Michael Jackson. Now, if you want to know who won what in school, Michael Jackson won Shyest and Best Dressed. What did I win, you ask? Danny Bonaduce does the least work possible, and I'm very proud of that. And that is our tour through 1976.
I was cutting school. I was going to school one day, and I look and he's on Soul Train or Bandstand, whatever one of them. No, he's Soul Train. Cornelius is interviewing. He says, so you go to school with some other celebrities? He said, yeah. And he says, Tony DeFranco and Danny Bonaduce. And the guy says, oh, how is Danny Bonaduce? And he says, oh, he's a great kid. And Cornelius says, that's not what you told me 5 minutes ago. I'm thinking, what the hell? You never know. Why did you tell him 5 minutes ago? And he says, well, I'm not going to do the impression. He said, Danny's always in trouble, and he actually fights. So I thought he made me look bad, so I went back to school because it was only 5 minutes away. I walked in, and I said, Jackson, come on out here, and I'm going to beat you up. And there's so many Jacksons, I hadn't thought of it. I am about to get my ass kicked with choreography. This is a weird moment. But apparently, everybody went okay. Nobody, there wasn't a big fight. But, Marlon would kick some ass. Michael and LaToya are not a great example of that family. There's some good, sturdy, hard work. They were, at least half of our basketball team were Jacksons. So my biggest interaction with Michael, because I knew Michael, from before. When I was doing the Partridge Family, he was doing something on the same studio. We met several times. But I'm going to school with the great Michael Jackson. And I hadn't really spoken to him, nor have I heard him speak. So one day he was going to the office, whatever the office means back then. And I saw him, I'm going to go talk to Michael Jackson. I've met him before. What the hell? So I went up to him, I said, hey, Michael, how can you never talk? And he looked at me and he said, because I'm in constant remembrance of God. And I went, well, yeah, but what about chicks? And that was the last time he spoke.
So, of course, you saw his trajectory, and then to sort of see the downfall, and then that news coming through about his death. I mean, it is a jolt, no matter what, isn't it?
I was mortified. Yeah, you grow up with the guy, and I was a super fan, so nobody was expecting that kind of thing. But people, it's a tough business. Like you said, you can get addicted, and while he's addicted to show business, he's also addicted to propofol, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Or passes away. It's a tragic time. Same with Marlon. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's incredible. The Partridge Family, of course, 1970, and Shirley Jones and Dave Madden really became like your protectors, almost like surrogate parents, didn't they?
They did, and it was very kind of them. I was having And I've mentioned this before, I was having a rough time at home. My dad was a violent guy to begin with.
I'm interested to know, do you think it was jealousy that drove your father to be so demonic, to be so abusive?
Yeah. All right, we'll update you on this. So the Partridge Family is not only a hit television show, we also have the #1 song in the country. We snuck the Beatles on the #1 spot with I Think I Love You, which is kind of tragic, but we did. So now there's groupies and fans in our front yard. And it's exciting to get signs, I love Danny. And it's really just the neatest thing in the world for me. And I'm walking out the door, and I'm going to go out with my mom, and we're going to drive to work. And my dad, I'm just opening the door, and my dad grabs me on the shoulder and says to me, remember this, son. Acting is one step below pimping. And then pushed me out the door, and I went, well, thank you for that, Dad. That was lovely. But the guy could get violent every now and again. And, you know, the guy that played Reuben Kincaid and Shirley Jones was so sweet to me. Yeah. But they also didn't like the fact that I would come to work with a black eye, and now everybody has to wait for makeup to fix that. You can't have a little Danny Partridge running around looking like he's beat up. So people, including especially Dave Madden, but also Shirley Jones, and even Suzanne Day, took to taking me home for the weekend. And I'd like to think it was out of the goodness of their heart, not that we're not going to sit through makeup of Danny's black eye again. And it was not a rare event. There was one time, and I wish I could remember the scene because I pointed it out to you. There's one time where I have a chiclet in my mouth as a front tooth. So people think, don't go, hey man, why did Danny Partridge have his teeth knocked out? So they were kind enough, and Dave Madden just took me for entire summers. When they went on, Dave, Reuben Kincaid, would take me home, and I would spend the entire summer at his house on the beach, which was very cool.
And it wasn't just to you, I think. It was also to your brother and sister, as I recall.
And not just my brother and sister. He's a violent man. He'd get going. And you'd see him, he wrote a show called Good Times. He would sit in his master bathroom, and back then, of course, he used a manual typewriter, and you'd hear him clicking away. And we'd all think, well, he's clicking. We're safe. Nothing can happen. But when he'd stop the clicking, we'd go, oh my God, who's he going to come? Is he going to be mad at this time? And Jimmy Walker yells, Dynamite, a lot. He came out of the bathroom and he goes, Dynamite? Dynamite? Is that what I'm going to write? And he quit right then and there. So I'm like, I can't write the words dynamite, which I would have done for money. No, I'd done it just as a hobby. But my dad was getting paid really well, and he just couldn't contain his stuff. So I don't know that was the last show he ever wrote, but it wasn't long after that. People stopped working with him.
Is that why you and your mum and your dad broke up, because he was just too violent and just too tumultuous a person?
That's exactly why. Well, it had nothing to do with show business. It had to do with his attitude. And, you know, his level of danger was always here. So, eventually she had enough and couldn't take, as they say, no more.
Shirley Jones turned 90 earlier this year. She's still in good health. Are you in touch with her?
Yeah, I talk to her sometimes. I talk to her kids more often. I talk to Sean Cassidy quite often. Wonderful guy. A little bit serious for me, but a wonderful guy.
Dave Madden, of course. Is there anybody funnier?
No, I met him for dinner one night. And long back, I think it was in the 70s, maybe the 80s. And we go to a place called the Smokehouse in Burbank, California. Famous place where actors and people go. So I would sit down, they sit me down, and they bring Dave Madden to the table. And he stands there. And so they pull out his chair. And I was thinking, he goes, no, I'll take my meal standing. And he stood up with the whole thing. He cut his food things, but the people looked at him. But I will tell you, one of the best times I've ever had with Dave. We were driving, he had a house right on the beach in Malibu. To get to Malibu from my house in the San Fernando Valley, you went over Topanga Canyon, all the way to Pacific Coast Highway, which has lines and cliffs. So he says, you know, I'm sick of driving. I'm not your chauffeur, Bonaduce. I'm going to teach you to drive right now. Great. You know, I'm a young boy. I said, my feet wouldn't reach the pedals, so I sat on his lap. And I'm sitting there, we get to the top of the hill, and he goes, okay, your turn, and you drive. And I said, okay, and I'm driving, and we're going a little faster. All of a sudden, Dave goes, and pretends to have a heart attack and die. He didn't give it up. We're screeching in my memory, although I'm young. In my memory, we're screeching towards death at 70 miles an hour. And he didn't break character until the stoplight at Pacific Coast Highway. And he said, you're a quick learner. And I was flabbergasted at this behavior. But the last time I spoke to Dave, I mentioned that. And I said, but you haven't probably had the one eye open the whole time. He goes, nope, I let you take the wheel, and that was it. We're going to get us to coast or not. What a big price to pay if he was wrong. It's sheer cliffs of Topanga Canyon. You know, I'm a kid. I looked up to Dave Madden so much. I thought he was wonderful. And by the way, not that many people know this, a fabulous magician, Dave Madden. Yeah. Really good. Anybody can do magic tricks, but Dave Madden to do it right here and just make something appear out of his hand. He's amazing.
His death in 2014, how do you process something like that, knowing how close you were, knowing what a great heart for you he had?
I missed him right away. It's interesting because two of my favorite people in the world, let alone the Partridge Family, passed away. Now, Dave lived a pretty long and okay and good life. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. David Cassidy is weird because I didn't know him really when I was a kid. People say, what was it like hanging out with David Cassidy? I didn't hang out with David Cassidy. He was 20 years old and I was 10. There's laws against that kind of relationship. I didn't really know him that well. And in 1990, I think it was 90, I got in trouble with the law. And that's code for I got arrested again. And I get a call from David Cassidy, and I don't know how I found my phone number. And he said, Bonaduce, I want to talk to you. And it was very, like, a lot of energy going on. And I said, yeah, what do you need, David? Because like I said, I didn't really know him that well. I was a little kid. We didn't interact much. And he said, listen, you're the funniest guy I know, but now you have become the joke. I'm thinking, David Cassidy might weigh 100 pounds or 120 pounds soaking wet. Like one of these, that would end this conversation immediately, although he was on the phone. But then I got the cheer that what he was doing. He said, listen, I'm going to go on tour and I want you to be my opening act and do all the press. And he said, if you do this, and I was unemployable, you know, I'm waiting to see if I'm going to go to jail or not. And I couldn't get a job. He said, if you do this tour and you behave yourself, you'll have a job by the day we wrap it up. And damn if that's not what happened, but I almost didn't go. He said, now listen, we're going to keep these things straight. I want you to know you're going to get on the bus. And I thought, holy Toledo, I'm actually going to get on a bus with David Cassidy. This is the coolest thing that ever happened. And they said, listen, there'll be no smoking, no drinking, no drugs, and no women. To which I said, why would I ever go on the tour if those are the rules? But I did. And God bless his heart, he was right. On the very last day of the tour, I did a morning radio show that I've done thousands of as a guest. I never been paid for it. And it went really well. And I came out of the door, of the studio door, which are soundproof. So I didn't know what was going on out there. I come out and there's the manager of the radio station. He said, listen, we don't have a lot of money. Well, we have, and this is 1988. He says, we have about $75,000. And I know that's all I'm thinking. I never made any money in the partnership. It's a fortune to me. Hell yes. But I held my guns and I said, let me call you tomorrow. And I did, and I joined, and that was the beginning of my professional radio career. That's where I started.
It's ironic, isn't it, that David Cassidy was struggling silently with sobriety, and yet you were at one of your lowest ebbs, and he helped straighten you out. It was almost like he was an angel on your shoulder, if you believe that.
And I'm a big believer in angels. That yeah, it was alive. I never really thought about it that way then, because I do think about things as there's angels looking out for me. I never really thought about that then. David Cassidy, you know, that's quite the angel to have on your shoulder. I got to say, I loved that guy. I looked up to him. When I thought, we're going to behave as friends and go on a tour in a bus, this is my wildest dreams come true.
You referenced before Sean Cassidy, with whom you're great friends, and he told you, didn't he, just how much David Cassidy loved and respected you and really appreciated the fact that you were able to turn your life around, and he had a hand in that.
He had a very big hand. That was, you know, I've been sober now, 13 years, but I sobered up a little bit for that tour. And, you know, you have moments of sobriety before you kind of get it right. But yeah, at this point, you know, I'm going to re-examine my relationship with David Cassidy, because I do believe in angels. And it wouldn't be weird if you get an angel on your shoulder that's named David Cassidy. That's wild even to think of.
Also, as an homage to David, you've got tattooed across your chest his last words, which are?
His last words is so much wasted time. I just thought, you know, with my relationship with my family, but yeah, I don't know how I can show this to you.
Yeah.
I'm going to show it to you. Right there. I don't know if you can read it.
Yes. Your wife, Amy, she feels David's spirit around, doesn't she?
She does indeed. You know, she's not the only one, or I'm not the only one who believes in angels and the lights. But after David Cassidy passed away, she said to me on more than one occasion, I said somewhere to someone that he talks to her. And that's not what it was. It was just that she could feel his presence, and then he was still rooting for us. And I just thought that was a lovely thing to say and feel. But I remember I was at his memorial, and it was a star-studded event. There were people from West Side Story there, and of course, all the Cassidy boys and things were there. A couple of Academy Award winners were there, including Shirley Jones. And it was really touching and beautiful. But, you know, nobody loves you like your family loves you. I remember, so Sean Cassidy gets up and he's going to talk about David's life and how wonderful he is, and that's what we're all kind of there for. And he said, you know, my brother David had a revolving door when it comes to truth. What a weird thing to say at the guy's memorial, that he had a revolving door relationship with the truth. But I got to tell you, he was good at it. I never, and I told him for a long time, I didn't believe that he was such an alcoholic because I never saw the guy drink. Never. Now, at some point, you'd have a cup that might have been tea. Who knows what the hell was in the cup? And he got 2 DUIs, and I called him up and I said, have you learned nothing from me? And he had an open bottle of Jack Daniels in the car with him. I said, listen, I can help you get off of these charges. I know how this works out. He said, I've got a lawyer, Danny. You don't have a lawyer as good as me, Cassidy. But he did a great job, and I don't think he went to jail for it. And I don't know what the lesson learned there is, but yeah, little David Cassidy, what a guy.
People don't recognize maybe now, if they're not of that era, that just what a superstar he was. I mean, he'd come to Australia, absolutely fill stadiums, the United Kingdom, across the US.
One of the reasons he stopped touring, although to be completely frank with you, also our stars were fading by this point, but at 2 different occasions, and this kind of, where I was doing a great little talk here, I hesitate to bring this up because it's kind of maudlin, 2 young ladies died at his concerts. And he said, I can't do that. The Beatles stopped going on tour because they couldn't hear themselves over the screaming. David just said, I'm not going out there ever again. And I talked about it in life. I said, well, that won't happen again. You should go on your own. And I think I had a big hand on him going and touring in the later years of his life. Not only the tour I do with me, but, I think I helped him go, you can do this now. It's not exactly like it was. It's not mania anymore. It's a good job. Go do it. And he did. He was good at it.
You kind of look around the cast of the Partridge Family, and David is gone. Suzanne Crough, little Tracy Partridge, she died in 2015. What happened to her later in life?
I don't know what happened to her. She had a very nice, normal life after the Partridge. She worked at the Home Depot, I believe, and was getting on nicely with her life. And here's as I understand it, and I've asked, and the best answer I can get was whatever killed her, she sat down at the dining room table to have dinner with her family. And much like you and I not knowing, what's going to happen next, she just didn't answer questions. And I went, oh my God. And she was dead at the dining room table. So I do not have answers for you what happened to her. But it happened right at the dining room table in front of her entire family.
Interesting too, Susan Day, who was an incredible talent, not just the Partridge Family, of course, but then years later, LA Law. But she just quit Hollywood and has nothing to do with any of it anymore, does she? No interest in Partridge Family reunions or discussing it or LA Law. She's completely retreated into her life of being an advocate, I think, for victims of rape and terrible crime and so forth.
Yeah, and she takes it very seriously. And it's hard to get over sometimes the Partridge Family repertoire, if you will, where you see me, and no matter what else you learn about me, I'm the guy from the Partridge Channel. And that's cool with me. I like it. I didn't like it for a while, but then, I started to make a living again. Susan Day wants nothing to do with it. And it's an honest thing to me because I almost don't understand that. How do you not want to be famous? It's like the coolest thing ever. And I've said this before, but being a child star was fantastic. Being an ex-child star just sucked. Our Partridge Family, I made $400 a week. And keep that in mind, we only worked 26 weeks a year. So like nobody from the Partridge Family, except for maybe Shirley and David, had any money. Everybody was broke when the show, pulled it up. And David made a pretty nice comeback. And then I ended up making, I ended up at one point, and this is a good year for me. I had the best, the #1 radio show in Los Angeles. And I did a TV talk show with Dick Clark and Mario Lopez. That's it. I am back, baby.
When last we spoke, you floated this fascinating idea, the Partridge Family bus, and you said you had this wonderful plan, drag it out of the junkyard or wherever it is, paint it up, tour it as a food truck, and turn this into a television series.
I think the days of me doing a lot of, hey, isn't that the guy from the Partridge? I'm a senior citizen now. I'm on, I'm on Medicare, for God's sake. I think, like I said, that ship has sailed. But it was a good idea, wasn't it?
Oh, I think it's an absolute cracker idea, and you never know who might be listening. You know what astounds me about you? There was a substantial period of your life, essentially you were homeless. There you were, living in your car off of Hollywood Boulevard, signing autographs and enchanting everybody and taking pictures, and then creeping around the corner into your car because you had nowhere to live.
To put an accurate description, I parked in a parking lot that I don't know if it exists anymore, but directly behind Bromwell's Chinese. And there's where you walk out from my car to Hollywood Boulevard. It's where all the handprints and footprints are. So I'd wake up in the morning, crawl out of my car, walk through there to get to Hollywood Boulevard, see if I was going to get something to eat that day. And there'd be hundreds of tourists with cameras, and they'd make me feel like a movie star all over again. They had no idea that 40 feet back is where I'm living, in the back seat of an old car. And it just, I got to tell you, people made me feel great. And it wasn't a great time.
If those people weren't there making you feel great and making you feel special, who knows whether you'd even have made it, Danny? You just don't know where your mind might have led you, knowing how grim those circumstances were.
And they were grim. And, people, they see people homeless in Hollywood and other places, and they think, well, there's a homeless community. I didn't find that to be true. I found that everybody was scared of everybody. And what one guy had in his shopping cart was the most important stuff in the world. To that guy over there, he wanted what you have because we had nothing. It was a scary and ugly time. But yes, I did come out of it and kind of well. Thank you very much for bringing that up.
Interestingly, I think it was 1985, and it was the National Enquirer who had the screaming front page headline of Danny Bonaduce starving. And it was only then really that people realized that you were in this jam, that you were in this predicament.
Yeah. I wrote a book, I guess around 1990 or so. And on the cover of that book, it was a picture of me reading the tabloids. And it said, Danny Bonaduce, dead, broke, and starving. It said, Danny Bonaduce on drugs, Danny Bonaduce. But the thing is that nobody knows, even though I've said it, those were all real headlines. I didn't change a thing. I just took them right out of the Enquirer and put them on the cover of my book. And, I barely recognized the Danny Bonaduce was that, I was dealing with back then. But it's funny to say you own it. I actually put the whole thing on the cover of my book.
Oprah called you up. I think were you in your car, or where were you? Wanted to fly you to Chicago for one of her interviews. And the only reason you said yes was you'd go into a lounge, you'd be on the plane, and you'd get something to eat.
She said, well, Danny, do you have any regrets? And I said, no. Whatever I had done before, bad or good, whatever I did, it got me this opportunity. And I woke up in my car, got on a plane, flew first class for the first time in my life, got to New York, I got to Chicago, did the show, and I got to go back to my hotel, which Oprah made a tragic mistake. She said I could sign her name for anything I wanted. And I know she meant like meals, but they sell stereos in the gift shop. And I told her, so I said, I'm going to have a really nice ride. And I did, and I've talked to her several times since. I did a Where Are They Now show with her. She's been very helpful to me.
You think about your life, the struggles, the booze, the drama splashed over the tabloids. You've owned all of that. I think that's another reason, Danny, why people adore you. You don't shy away from what you've done. But I mean, you've said before, you shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be talking now. You should be in a casket with people popping flowers on top of your tombstone.
With David Cassidy and Suzanne Crough and David. Absolutely.
How is this for a moment that just, it defies belief? Frank Sinatra, old Blue Eyes, came up to you and asked for an autograph. It normally would be the other way around, isn't it, Danny?
Place at a bar and restaurant in Hoboken, New Jersey, I believe, called Jilly. It might have been in New York, I'm not sure. But I'm sitting there with this family friends, the Costas, and Frank Sinatra. Well, I could have said anybody. Barry had a niece or something like that. I just loved the Partridge Family. And he said, hey, kid, can I get an autograph from my niece? And I was not as, David Cassidy, Elvis Presley, and Frank Sinatra, that was as big as you get. And, it was kind of seemed normal at the time. I just wrote to Stacy or whatever the other lady's name was that gave it. Yes, all Blue Eyes asked me for my autograph, and I was happy to give it to him.
Have you ever been starstruck? Have you ever run into anybody and you've gone, whoa, I mean, this is something?
I have indeed several times. But one of the funniest, as far as I'm concerned, was I ended up doing a lot of infomercials where I was selling product for some guy. And there was a guy, what's his name? Tony Little, I believe it was. Wore a cap, giant hair, and he sold exercise equipment in the middle of the night. So I'd seen this guy's show 100 times because it's the same show. And I met him in a mall or I was, oh my God, you're the exercise guy from TV. Well, you got to pick your poison. Like, what celebrities are you going to pick the most of? And that's the guy I saw the most. Martin Landau, I met at an autograph show. I was sitting between Shirley Jones and Martin Landau. I thought this was a thing for has-beens. It's kind of embarrassing to do an autograph show. Turns out it's not. Shirley Jones and Martin Landau, 2 Academy Awards, sitting shoulder to shoulder with me. So I was a little stunned by that. Martin Landau, the guy from Mission Impossible. Are you kidding me?
You referenced your sobriety, and it's been coming on to 14 years now.
Yeah.
A big hand in your sobriety is your wife, Amy. I think she gave you an ultimatum. Is that right? She just said, now, Danny, clean up your act, or that's it.
Actually, she's done that twice. When we were first together, years and years ago, we'd been together enough to go on vacation together. We were in Hawaii, in Maui, and we were on some boat. We're going to go snorkeling, and they've got rum punch in a big vat. And I remember pouring it out. I see her, and she goes, "If you take a sip of that, I'm going home. You won't." And so I took a big sip. When I got back to my hotel room, she was gone. But I won her back over, but I still wasn't the gentleman you see before you now. Second time, this is where we really got out of control. I was a little late for work in Philadelphia. I only lived about 1,000 feet from the radio station. I run in the door, I turn on my mic, and I start talking, and there's two other people, this producer and the weather woman, and they're just staring at me, and they're in shock. So I'm trying to see if my fly is down, what the hell is going on here? And the producer says, "Hey, why don't you just go wash up?" No, all right. I go into the bathroom, and I am wearing a blood mask from just nothing but blood. I wasn't hurt badly because head wounds bleed a lot, but you wouldn't know that I was hurt, just massive. And I couldn't remember how that happened. And she said, "I've had enough of this. You have to straighten up." And that time, I did it. That time, I stayed clean.
Good on you. But it was Starbucks, I think you met, because she was a great fan of your Breaking Bonaduce show.
Well, here's the weird one. So I'm standing in line at Starbucks, and there's this girl that I think is kind of out of my class, but she's staring at me, and she starts to walk toward me, and I know she's going to say, "You know, you look like," or something like that. She walks up, and I said, "Hi," and she's all right. "I just want to tell you, I really enjoyed your book." And I thought, wow, she read my book? Like, that wasn't a red hot sellout, to be honest with you. But, it was a great way to me to go, here's the thing. When she said it, I said, "Well, that's great. You want to get married?" And I think she thought I was kidding, because I've married, I don't know how this makes me seem, but I've married 2 women the first day I met them. My first wife, I was working at a restaurant, and she was a waitress who I'd never met before, but I was studying Japanese anyway, and she was talking to another waitress in Japanese, and I got, well, first of all, how you say green card in Japanese? Like this, green card. So I kept hearing that, and I went up to her finally, and I said, "What's your name?" She said, "Setsuko." And I said, "Listen, if you have a problem with your green card," she said, "Yeah." I said, "I'll marry you if you want." And she went, "Okay." And we got married by like a voodoo priestess or something on Venice Beach, California. And then I ended up doing it again in Phoenix. I'm on a date, first date with this girl named Gretchen, and I'm doing all the good stuff. And we get to my apartment later after dinner and all that stuff. And I went to make my moves on her, because I got patented Nanny Bonaduce moves.
Oh, yeah.
She said, "Hold it." Yeah, thank you. She said, "Hold it right there. I should have mentioned this earlier, but I am not prepared to do that till I'm married." To which I said, "All right." So I married her that night. Amy's not joining the group of the people that you marry on the first date. So we went together for 4 years, and then finally, thankfully, I got to marry the girl.
But I tell you what, Amy is a keeper, because what is it now, 14 years and counting?
Yeah. It's, no, I think it's more. Together, we've been together 18 years. And I think, man, she's sitting right there. Don't get me in trouble. How long? 14 years.
And I would blame it on the water on the brain thing anyway, Danny. Did anybody ask?
That's a lot of excuses right there.
You're a dad of 2 kids who, as I understand it, are both in acting as well. They're in showbiz.
Neither one of them.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, they were interested in it, but I think they saw how that worked out. My son is a chef, and my daughter lives in England, in Brighton, I think, with her husband, who is a scientist, and they're both having great lives outside of show business.
Oh, wow, that's excellent. When last we spoke, you told me of your incredible penchant for being, how should I say this, an autograph bandit.
It was, again, my wife's idea. We'd go into record stores, like used vintage records, and we'd find a Partridge Family album, which are not that hard to find, and I'd pick it up, and I'd sign my name on it and put it back. I call it elegant vacancy. This is Gray's Record Store right in downtown Palm Springs. This is right here. I'm going to sign it. I'm going to put it back, and you guys are going to come and get it. And some people, I didn't know this, some people would race to get it. It's like, it's a $2 album. It's now worth $1.50 because I've vandalized it. I've done it Palm Springs twice. And both times, no, not both. One time was picked up by a fan of my radio show in Seattle. Came straight down here to find it and did. I think his name was Lenny. Lovely guy.
Well, we talked about your book, Random Acts of Badness, but that was, I think, 22, 23 years ago. Do you think, considering the journey of your life since, it's worthy of an update?
People who like me, like my wife and my agent, both say it's a good time. Like, pick it up. And I would do it, but like I said earlier, it's not nothing to write a book. I had a very weird way of doing my book. I would use dictation software, which was kind of new back then. And what I would do, and I dedicated the book to my friend Jose Cuervo and Philip Morris. And I would sit there in a little room with a headset on. I would just talk to it and write right up until I was slurring and stuff, and the software could no longer recognize my voice. And that's when I'm done for the evening. But as I said, it wasn't one that it was a little bit of business to write a book in that condition.
Danny, I got to say, it is always a joy to talk to you, and I'm hoping you're enjoying your retirement. Frankly, your fans are being robbed. We need to see more of you just being fabulous. You need to do nothing but just sit and talk. You're wonderful.
Happy to do it. I'm happy to do it. And thanks for taking the interest in me. I really do appreciate it.